Auspicious greetings, everyone. It's good to see you all for the new week and our learning today on how to face the wall and treat others. So before we start, look at what we are going to share and what we're going to discuss today. Let us have a short meditation first. So let us make sure that we're sitting upright, both feet flat on the floor. Let's relax our body. Gently close our eyes. Our hands resting on our knees or making meditation gesture. Let us put aside whatever that we haven't finished and give ourselves a moment to focus on our breathing. Now let us take in a few deep breaths, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in again, breathing out. And let us gently rub our palms together. Let's cover our palms on our eyes, top of our head, over our ears to the back of our neck. Let's gently rub our palms together. Gently massage our shoulders, arms, all the way to our fingers and wrists. Okay. So let us have a quick recap of what we have discussed and learned last week. We talked about how to, get along with others and also in a group. So based on a few articles that were written and suggested by Benjamin Master, I kind of like summarize into 4 points. The first one is to give thanks, gratitude for the things that we have, and also appreciating the presence of each other within the group. And of course, we also talk about causes and conditions, the past that we have cultivated, and also the present, we have to start cultivating the future causes and condition right now. It's not just like planning, but we actually have to cultivate and start creating the right causes and condition at the present moment. Okay. And the third one is when we are within the group, when we try to get along with each other, we always try to be sincere and also genuine to each other. There's no hidden agenda. We talk about that. And then the last point is every one of us are just like teachers. So we can learn from each other. Every one of us has something that you're good at. So we always remind ourselves to be humble and also understanding and accommodating. Everyone has different ways in doing things. Every one of us have different views of certain things. But when we are in a group, or we try to get along with others, we try to listen. We try to open up our heart, our mind, and try to listen to others' view, their different ways. It could be a better way for doing certain things. So these are the 4 points that we kind of like talk about it. And thank you for sharing your insight or experiences in the classrooms. And then for today, we're going to continue to learn on the subject on how to face the wall and treat others. Okay, so like this is also another big topic. How do we face the wall? Okay, so we know that today's wall, in comparison with 2,600 years ago, back in the Buddha's time, are they the same? Of course not. Things have changed so much. Okay, and like if we open our door, we turn on the TV, we can listen to the news, we get to know that the world is not as simple as it is as before. The word complex here is mainly referring to the diversity and things, how they evolve, the advancement of technology, transportation, communications, many things going on at the same time. Okay, it increased the complexity when it comes to person-to-person interaction. Okay, because of so many happenings at the same time, so many changes, so many evolution. Okay, so we're in a community with diversity of cultures, not only cultures, religions, and lifestyles, and even like the culture itself is very interesting too. Like for myself personally, I'm born and raised in Malaysia. My ancestors are from China, but when they immigrated to Malaysia, we are exposed to the Malay culture. We are exposed to the Indian culture, and then eventually we call ourselves the Malaysian culture. And even back then, Malaysia or Malaya before independence, we were being occupied by the British, by the Holland, by the Dutch. So there's so many diverse culture, history, background, everything got mixed up together. So when it comes to culture, there's so many different variety or diversity based on the culture that we are exposed to or we are born to. Not to say the religions, even though there are 5 main world religions, but there are many other religions. And also lifestyle. The lifestyle within this family and that family is different. Or even sometimes within our big family, individual families have a different lifestyle. Yeah. Or individually, we also have different lifestyle, different way of living. Okay. So this diversity can be a source of strength, but also it can sometimes lead to misunderstandings or conflicts if we don't really understand each other. Okay. So let me share with you one interesting experience that I've experienced before. You know, being born and raised in Malaysia, when I had the opportunity to go to Buddhist college in Taiwan. Okay, so you know, even though we speak the same language, Mandarin, Chinese, okay, but then there was one time when we are getting ready for breakfast, and then I was asking, can I have some butter? Okay, in Chinese, it is called a different word. Okay, it's called 牛油. It's like I'm not sure how to translate in English, but I'm trying to refer to butter. Okay, but for Taiwanese, the same word is referring to the lubricant for the car tire. The same word, the same word. But I'm trying to say butter. Can I have some butter? So they give me that look. What? What? So again, misunderstanding. Even though we speak the same language, but because we are in different region, different places. Okay. When I use the same word, I have that image. I want this butter, but then I was given like, you know, the odd look in their face, and what? You want lubricant for your bread? Okay. So this is just one of the funny misunderstandings. But sometimes, if we don't really understand the whole culture diversity or the words, the language of one tradition, one culture, sometimes we might lead to misunderstanding. And it's just like the same word like grandmother. Okay. And for us to refer to grandmother is referring to my mom's mom, okay, or my dad's mom. Okay. But the same word, but when I say that in Taiwan, they translate it as mother-in-law. The same word. Okay. And then when I mentioned that, the devotees kind of look at me, what? I thought you're single. You know, as a Buddhist nuns, yeah. And then I said, yeah, I'm referring to my mother's mother, grandmother. So again, the same word in Chinese, but in different country, it has a different meaning. Okay. And then if the person, if the devotees didn't voice up, she might have that impression, oh, this venerable has family. That could lead to a misunderstanding. Okay. So this is just a few examples. In this world, such a wide diversity and differences. Okay. And this requires us to adapt and learn ways to better embrace each other with more understanding, magnanimity, and less presumptuous. Presumptuous? Okay.
Assumption?
Presumptuous. Yeah.
Oh, less presumptuous.
Yes. Yeah. So the pace of today's changes in the world is way faster than before. So today, I would like to share with you 4 points in terms of how we can face the world, and of course, like facing with the ever-changing society and the world that we're in. And this is also based on what Venerable Master Xing Yun has mentioned in the articles in the book Keys to Living Well. So the first point that I would like to highlight is patience and magnanimity, right? Magnanimity. Okay, big word for me. The strength for practice. Okay, so I know like nowadays the issues on discriminations, racial inequality, and so on and so forth, is getting more and more common. Okay, so but then living in this world, we know based on what the Buddha shared with us, even including the Buddhist teachings, is we constantly talk about patience. Okay, So patience is not about accepting a loss or being incapable, but rather it is about how we resolve our difficulties with an open and clear mind when faced with slander and criticism. Right. So sometimes people might, when it comes to the word patience, um, people have different view on this practice. Sometimes people might think that, oh, you're just being, weak when a person is being patient. But basically, it is for us to have a more open-minded when it comes to whatever difficulties or challenges that we experience at that point when we are in the society, in the world. Okay. But we have to open up our mind and try to understand what is going on, what is happening, okay, so that we can conduct ourselves. Is just like in a more peaceful way. We use the word peaceful and also more calm in our mind, so that we are not acting as per what we are being agitated. Like, things happen and then we just react accordingly. Okay. Sometimes conflict will happen when we're being challenged and we react just like that. Okay. So in conducting ourselves, we must be like the earth and having the cultivation to tolerate and also embrace to gain the strength in dealing with worldly matters. So we usually use the parable like the earth, okay? The ground, the earth. When it is so hot, the earth will just remain as it is. When it starts raining, the earth will just absorb. When you stomp your food on the ground, will the earth react? It will not. Okay, so in our mind, we just try to be like the earth. Okay, so having the cultivation to tolerate when things happen, we always try to observe before we react. Okay, so when others is trying to deceive us, we still have to treat them with honesty. Okay, sometimes if we are being sometimes we use the word bully, okay, or when there others abuse, another big word, revile, okay, scold or harass you. On that account, you should not entertain any annoyance, bitterness, or dejection of heart. Never indeed is hatred stilled by hatred. It will only be stilled by non-hatred. This is the reminder from the Buddha. Okay, so patience is just like the forbearance that can really observe calmly when there's turbulence, when there's conflict. Okay, and then of course, like the Buddha also gave us an example how we can still by non-hatred. If you can remember, there was an occasion the Buddha gave a parable of a person tried to give a present, a gift to the Buddha. And then the Buddha said that if I didn't want to accept it, what will happen to the gift? The person will take it back. Okay. So imagine like a person were to slander, criticize, or scold us or the Buddha. And if our mind remains patient, calm, and not reacting to what the person has said, what will happen? Will he continue like get more angry and angrier and angrier? What will happen to that person? Eventually the person will stop. Okay. This is what the Buddha mentioned about if we were given a gift and we don't accept it, the gift will be taken back. The same goes to when there's disagreement, there's conflict, there's someone out of nowhere, no reason, start like scolding us or criticizing us. If it is not true, if none of it make make any sense, okay? Or we can remain quiet. We can remain silent. And for the Buddha will smile to that person. And then eventually that person will stop saying whatever that he's trying to criticize or agitate the Buddha. Okay? The same goes to the Buddha also gave another parable. If a person were to be unreasonably to us, being unreasonable to us, and then we will not react upon that unreasonable accusations or criticism, etc. It is just like when a person speaks, okay, speak out. Okay. Instead of speaking down, it's just like when you have your head rise up to the ceiling and you speak to the sky. What will happen to the speak? Okay, it goes back to your face, yeah? So the same goes to what the Buddha mentioned about it is only we won't be able to use hatred to still hatred, but we will need to practice patience in order for us to overcome whatever hatred that we are facing by others. Okay, so these are the two parables that is a constant reminder for ourselves how we practice patience when it comes to inequality or some challenges in life. Sometimes it takes time for us to kind of like observe what is going on and make our stand. Or when we look at the situation, when it comes down a little bit, we can voice out what we think, okay, in a very calm manner. Okay, just remember that if there's an argument for it to happen, it's usually two person. If it is just one person, there won't be any argument. If there's only one person, there won't be any conflict. Okay, if there's only one person, there won't be a fight. Okay, so the same goes to many things in life that we might think that it is inequality. This is not fair. Okay, that being discriminated or being criticized out of no reasons, being challenged at workplace. Sometimes that could be the causes and condition behind it that we don't see it at that moment. Okay, sometimes it takes time for us to really understand what is going on. And always remember, if we were to just react instantly, usually the consequences will not be that wholesome. Yeah. So another parable that I would like to share with everyone in terms of the cultivation of patience, okay, is I just realized that, the Chinese bamboo seed you see the bamboo, sometimes we know that they grow very fast, very tall. But I just realized that when you want to plant the seed of the bamboo, especially the Chinese bamboo seed, okay, do you know it takes how long for it to germinate? In a soil, put water, make sure you have sufficient sunlight. It can take up to 5 years until it has something pop up from the ground. Okay, but once the bamboo has sprouted, okay, within 6 weeks it can grow as tall as 90 feet. Okay, so what is the seed going on during that time of 5 years? Okay, because the seed has a very hard shell. Okay, so it takes time for it to sprout, and not only that, it takes time to establish its root system underground first. So that's why when a Chinese bamboo starts sprouting and germinating, it will be very fast. Okay, so sometimes in life, we might think that, when we are being patient, we might be easily bullied or being easily looked down. But then for us to be patient, for us to continuously cultivate, we will be able, just like the bamboo, okay? Even though we might not see any results instantly, but in the long run, when we are patient, when we get along with others, people around us will be more understanding. Okay. And then we can gradually communicate with each other and face with whatever situation that we are in a more peaceful way. Okay. So this is what we mentioned about patience and magnanimity. Okay. So the next point that I would like to share with everyone, okay, is be less presumptuous. Thank you. And understanding are the cultivation for harmony. Okay. So I keep on listening to the pronunciation of this word, presumptuous. Presumptuous. But less of that. Okay. So we learn to be more amiable, understanding others by listening more and willing to accept others' advices. Okay. So that is the part with understanding. Okay. And the second part with the presumptuous. Okay. So it's like we do not try to make assumption of others. Okay. So in getting along with one another, we should speak out clearly on every matter. We should not harbor ill feelings breed out of suspicion or expectation. Okay. The word presumptuous, okay, is usually happen, especially in people that we are have a closer connection. We sometimes have that presumptuous mind, okay, but then we often have to remind ourselves we need to put ourselves in other shoes. Okay. So what does it mean by presumptuous? Okay. So imagine in a family between mom and dad. Sometimes the mom will have the expectation of the dad. Okay. Every week you should, or not every week, like every day after dinner, you have to take out the trash, for example. Okay. And that it is in the mind of the mom, okay, because there's certain level of expectation. Okay. Even the kids, sometimes like without saying in the mind of the parents, they have certain level of expectation. And sometimes they don't say it. Okay. When you don't say it, nobody will know. Okay. No matter how close we are within a family, okay, with the using the eyes, try to talk, try to make others understand. Sometimes it will lead to misunderstanding if we don't say it out. And sometimes I was just joke saying that I do not have supernatural power. I won't be able to understand what you have in your mind. We have to communicate. We have to say it. We have to, less presumptuous, okay, among each other. Okay, so it is not only within the family, but also in the workplace, among colleagues, in organization. Sometimes we have certain level of expectation that is not written black and white. Okay, it's just within the mind saying that, oh, as a subordinate, you should listen to the boss, for example. Okay, but sometimes if there are things that the boss wanted to get it done, but the boss didn't say it, but then the boss still have the certain level of expectation of the subordinate. Sometimes that could lead to a lot of misunderstanding. Okay, and not only that, sometimes between the family, organization, and sometimes even friends. Okay, so sometimes like imagine A and B are good friends. They always text each other and talk to each other very frequently. And then one day, B didn't reply the text messages. And then A started imagining, oh, what happened? Okay, is it because of this that she's angry of me? And then the whole picture within the mind started to elaborate more and more and start hallucinating. Okay, this is all expectation. This is all presumptuous in our mind. Okay. But then again, for us to create a harmonious, not only the family, society, and relationship, we have to be less presumptuous, right? And we have to be more understanding among each other. Okay. So for myself, I always remind myself, every one of us haven't had the supernatural power to understand or know what you're thinking in your mind. Right? I want to know what you're thinking right now. Right? So I don't assume what you already know. Okay? The same goes to myself. Okay? Sometimes I also have the tendency to have a certain level of expectation towards others. Okay? Like for example, when you want to sit down, please gently pick up your chair and sit gently instead of like pulling the chair. Okay, and making the sound ka 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 ka. But sometimes during the retreat, there's a constant reminder. But sometimes in a class, when we are not aware, when we are not mindful, we just follow our habit. And then sometimes I remind myself again and again, everyone doesn't have supernatural power. We have to say it, we have to share it, we have to remind each other. Okay, so that will avoid having misunderstanding or um, something that we don't. Eventually, this will have a snowball effect towards ourselves. If we have the misunderstanding or bad feeling among each other and we don't say it, but that will continue to grow bigger and bigger and bigger until one day when there's a condition that your button being pushed and then you'll be boom, burst out. Okay? But then again, we remind ourselves not to have that certain level of expectation or try to be less presumptuous and more understanding among each other. That is one way for us to ensure harmonious environment, family, community for us to be in. Okay. So the third point that I would like to share with everyone is gentleness and tolerance are the prescription for handling matters. Okay. So gentleness in handling matters, we must be moderate and calm so that we can overcome harshness. Okay. So when our feelings among each other are genuine, and when we are handling these matters with a very calm mind, okay, we'll be able to overcome the harshness, okay, that we might encounter. And sometimes we use the parable of water. Okay, water is very gentle. Okay, water is very calm. Okay, and a drop of water, constant drop of water, okay, even though it's so gentle, it will make a hole in this hardest rock, okay, over time. Okay, so water, even though it is very small drop, as if like it is powerless, but water can be very strong. Okay, not in terms of the hardness or not in terms of power, but over time, over days, the continuous dripping of the water or our continuous effort in communication, try to have our views voice out, it takes time. And it takes us to continuously do so. It's just like the water. We never give up hope because one day our voice, our views will be heard. But then we try to remind ourselves not to be harsh, try to be gentle. Okay. And then when others is riding high in their power and taking a rough stand, we should win them over with gentleness. When we are yielding and tolerant, we will be able to overcome toughness with gentleness. Okay. And it's just like an example that during the Buddha's time, the Buddha was being approached by 500 monks that has been expelled from another community because they cannot get along with other monks. Okay, And then the Buddha welcomed them and gave them teachings on the importance of being gentle with each other, and also tolerance, the practice of tolerance towards one another. Okay. The Buddha also encouraged them to see each other as brothers and to forgive each other's fault and to work together towards their shared goal of liberation. So even though like within the community, in the world, or in the society that we lived in, because of how diverse we are, even though we speak the same language, okay, sometimes that could be misunderstanding, disagreement, but then whatever situation that we're in, we just try to, look at each other as one big family, okay? And then with that in mind, we will be able to have more tolerance among the differences among each other, okay? So this another story that I would like to share with everyone is, this is a story that some of you might have known, that the Buddha's cousin, Devadatta, okay? Do you know that monk? Okay, so the relationship between Devadatta and Buddha before renunciation, they are actually cousins. They are actually living in different kingdoms, but they are also royal families. Okay, and then eventually Devadatta renounced and followed the Buddha and practiced, become the monk. At first, Devadatta has a very pure intention of practice and improving oneself. Eventually, when the more that Devadatta have practiced, and then it eventually lost his focus on the right path in practice. He focused more on fame. He focused more on power. He focused more on things that is not really related to practice. Okay, so and of course I did mention about the previous relationship in the previous lives between the Buddha and Devadatta, but long story short, Devadatta constantly tried to hurt and harm the Buddha. Okay, and then there was one point that Devadatta has asked a village where they have elephants, and one of the elephants is called Nalagiri, which is the photo right there. It's a huge elephant. And then Devadatta has asked the owner of the elephant, okay, to give the elephant some alcohol to drink, so that the elephant goes like crazy, out of the mind. Okay, and then when Devadatta knew that the Buddha and the whole disciples, the whole sangha, are coming this way for alms round, Devadatta asked this owner to let loose the elephant, because the elephant was drunk. Okay, it was like running, bumping here and there, and then because it's huge, when he was running towards the Buddha, Ananda saw it from far. Ananda tried to stand in front of the Buddha, tried to protect him. And then the Buddha said that, please, Ananda, stand aside. I can handle this. Okay. And eventually, when the elephant came closer and closer, the Buddha's demeanor has touched the elephant. Okay. For some reason, the elephant slowed down and then kneel down in front of the Buddha. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say, like with this story, it reminds us that when our mind is filled with gentleness and a mind of tolerance, even though we don't say it, we do it. We show by our action. One will be able to feel it. Others will be influenced by what we practice. Okay, so this is just one of the many examples. And there was also an occasion where Devadatta tried to convince another hundreds of monks to leave the Sangha, to leave the Buddha and practice with him. He mentioned a few rules that is so different than what the Buddha has promoted. Okay, but then when the 500 monks listened to Devadatta, and then in some sense, it makes sense, it's logical. But when the 500 monks tried to challenge the Buddha when they returned to the Sangha, when the Buddha mentioned a few words, and the 500 monks listened with and being touched by the gentleness of the Buddha and also the wisdom by the Buddha, and eventually all of them returned to the Sangha. Okay, so this is one of the many examples that how the Buddha used wisdom and gentleness in, I won't say overcome, but try to dissolve whatever conflict that might happen. Okay, and even like there's also an occasion where that there might be war between the two kingdoms. Okay, and the Buddha just sat in the middle of the road, okay, under withered trees, there's no shade, and then tried to block the king from invading another kingdom, because as part of the Indian tradition is that if a country, a kingdom wants to start a war, if they come across a practitioner along the way, they have to turn back. Right? So that was a tradition back then. Okay? So that's the reason why the Buddha knew that this troop is crossing the street, and the Buddha just sat in the middle of the road under the hot blazing sun. Okay, so this is also another example of how the Buddha used gentleness and wisdom to try to dissolve and try to create a more harmonious outcome. So this is how the Buddha handled the matters, and also share with us the different ways of how we experience the conflicts with gentleness, with wisdom in a way. Okay. The last point is be courteous and respectful are the standards for human relationships. Okay. So every one of us wants to be treated with courtesy and respect. Okay. In dealing with our family, neighbors, co-workers, or friends on a daily basis, it is important to be courteous and respectful. Okay, so we should treat others the way that we want them to treat us. And then another examples that you might have heard between the one that is like, kneeling down on the floor, his name is Nidhi. He was the one that helped to remove and clean the restrooms of household. Okay, of course, like back then, 2,600 years ago, there's no convenience of just flushing the toilet. There's no piping. There's no like that convenience. So they will have the restroom, like you have to walk like to the backyard for like half a mile to use the restroom, because they have a hole, and underneath the hole you usually have a bucket. So Nidhi is the one who removed the buckets of whatever that we put inside. You call it what is that word? This excrement. So yeah, thank you. So Nidhi is considered the lowest caste system of the Indian society. We know the top one is the Brahmins, the one who conducted rituals. Second level, those are the royal ones, the royal families. And the third level are those merchants, those who do the trading. And the lowest is what we call untouchable or slaves. Okay, so 2,600 years ago, the caste system is like that, very distinct. Okay, those who are higher hierarchy, they will always be on top, life after life, generation after generation. If a person is born in a royal family, generation after generation, they will be in the royal family. So, but then when the Buddha realized enlightenment, the Buddha mentioned what? Everyone is equal. Why? because every one of us have Buddha nature. Every one of us has the potential to realize full enlightenment. Okay, and thus we are equal. We are the same. Okay, so when needy, he has like the buckets of excrements, like cleaning the restroom from one house to another. From far, he saw the Buddha coming, and then he knew that he's smelly. And then to him, he still feel unworthy of to talk to the Buddha, because this is how the whole India has structured the whole society. The untouchable cannot touch the things that other caste system uses. Okay, once they touch it, other people cannot touch it. They have that tradition. Okay, and when Nidhi saw the Buddha, he got nervous, and he wanted to turn away because the Buddha, the noble ones, is coming towards him. Okay, so that's why he got nervous and then a little bit panic, and he dropped the excrement on the floor to the ground. And then the Buddha came to him and helped him to stand up. And Nidhi was feel so bad of what he had done. And then he said that, Buddha, please don't touch me, okay, because he knew that he's in the lowest caste system. To him, he's like he didn't want to how do you put it? He didn't want the Buddha to get close to him because of his smell and everything. But then the Buddha said that you and I are the same. The Buddha told Nidhi, there's no difference among each other. You help to clean others' house, and I help to cleanse people's mind. And thus you and I are the same. Okay. So with this in mind, that we look at the world that we live in today, it's filled with discrimination, the racist dispute or inequality that happened in the society. Back in the Buddha's days, there's no law enforcement, there's no policeman. Okay, they will just go by what the ruler will say, the king. The king of the kingdom is the ruler that set up the rules of what you should do and put the bad guys behind bars. But they didn't have police or officers or law enforcement. They do not have. They only have soldiers to fight for the country. Okay, but then if we look at our society today, our world today, even though we have the president of a country or the prime minister of a country like governing, but we also have different departments try to enforce and try to raise awareness of social justice, equality within the society. But look at during the Buddha's time, during India's, back in India, okay, there's no such thing as inequality because everyone goes with the caste system. Okay, they didn't question anything. When a person is born as a slave, generation after generation after generation will be slaves, untouchables. Okay, so but then when the Buddha realized enlightenment, he tried to remove that idea that the inequality of the society or the whole system runs. It is not the way, because no matter how high you are in a society, we are still the same. Okay, no matter how low you are in a society, what the job that you do might be to many people might think that, oh, this is like a job that nobody wants to do, but it is equally important. Okay, imagine like 1 week there's no trash truck, garbage truck come to remove our trash. What will happen? After 2 weeks, after a month, what will happen? Okay, the same goes to like the ones that helps to make sure our streets are clean, the one driving the truck and cleaning everything. Every one of us are equally important, and not to say what the Buddha mentioned about the potential within ourselves. we are all equal in many ways because we all have the potential to realize full enlightenment. Okay, so to conclude what we discussed today, for us to face the world and treating others wholesomely, the first thing that we have to remind ourselves again and again is patience and magnanimity are the strength for our practice. Second point is be less presumptuous and understanding more are the cultivation for harmony. And the third point, gentleness and tolerance are the prescriptions for handling matters. And the last point is be courteous and respectful are the standards for human relationships. Okay, so this is a conclusion summary of how we can face the world with more patience, more understanding, and also like less presumptuous, and of course, be more respectful among each other. So for today, I also want to put up these two questions for everyone to think about and also to contribute your views. The first one is how can I remain grounded and centered in the face of difficult or challenging situations? How can I cultivate inner strength and resilience in order to respond with wisdom and compassion? Okay. And the second one is in what ways can I balance my own needs with the people around me? And how can I ensure that I'm treating everyone with equanimity and respect? Okay. I do not have answers to these questions because this is what we are facing today. Okay, situation to some of us are very challenging when it comes to certain community, a certain place that we are in. Sometimes there are so many different practices that we can practice, okay? But then we have to know that we cannot change others, but we can decide who we want to be, okay? What we want to practice, okay? So how can I cultivate the inner strength to face with challenging people, challenging situations, and sometimes it's very difficult in a way, okay? So I hope that if you have any thoughts, any views, any ideas, any suggestion, please share with everyone via email or in the classrooms. I look forward to get to know what you think about these two questions, okay? And of course, when it comes to our own needs with the people around me, it could be referring to the family, it could be referring to the society, it could be referring to an organization itself, okay? Sometimes the organization goal wants to generate more profits, but then sometimes as an individual, we try to emphasize more on safety, more on other aspects, values within the organization. How can we ensure that we still be able to respect the company mission, vision, and also the people around us, okay? So, okay, now we have some time for questions, feedbacks. For those of you here in person, you can unmute the Zoom right there. If you have any questions, please sit over there, the hot seat there. Okay, yes, Marisa.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Was wondering, how did Buddha know or had the confidence to know that the elephant will not harm him, but like, will kneel down? Because I mean, if I had that confidence, I'd be all equanimous and, and patient and tolerant and everything too. But like, I'd probably get scared of the elephant and be like, run, So the concern that, there's a difference between like knowing you can handle it versus not knowing. And I think that's where the dilemma lies. Like, how does he know? And how does he be like, okay, cool, the elephant's gonna, no problem, Ananda, I can take care of this, I can handle this. Because we don't have that confidence. At least I don't.
Okay, thank you, Marisa, for raising this question. Personally, I don't have the answer, but I know that the Buddha, the confidence that the Buddha has, or the compassion that the Buddha has, is not just within that life. The Buddha has been cultivating life after life after life after life, in practicing patience, practicing compassion, practicing loving kindness, and even like the confidence within oneself. Okay, it is not just that instant that the Buddha had it with himself, but when the Buddha is standing there, the great compassion that he has, the loving kindness that he has, is not only within his mind, but also everyone knows it. All beings knows it. Okay, and this is just one of the examples of the Buddha and the elephant. There was even one time when Sariputra and the Buddha walked down a path, and there were like birds like on the ground. When Sariputra approached the birds feel they just flew away because they are afraid of Sariputra. But the same thing that when the Buddha walked by, okay, even though the shadow covering the birds remain calm. The birds remain unafraid. It is because the Buddha has been practicing compassion and not harming beings life after life after life after life. Whatever that he shared with us, his experience, he has been doing it for so many lifetimes. So even without showing it, without saying it, all beings around him can feel it. Okay, so it doesn't mean that when you walk on the park and then you see a dog off leash start marching towards you, you just stand there, embrace whatever the dog trying to attack you. This is not ideal. This is not the way. We still need to, try to do whatever that we need to do to protect ourselves. Okay, try not to try anything adventurous. Yeah, so I won't be able to answer that question, but based on my understanding of like the life of the Buddha and even the enlightenment of the Buddha in this lifetime, 2,600 years ago, it didn't happen instantly. It takes time to cultivate lifetime after lifetime for so many lifetimes until perfection. Okay, so for us, we still have a lot to do. Okay. Okay. So anyone? Yes, Marie. Okay, we have one question here. You can unmute the Zoom.
More on that story with the elephant. I also heard that when the elephant approached Buddha, that he made 5 lions, or make it seem to the elephant like there were 5 lions, and that made the elephant pause, and then he was and stop and help to stop the elephant. Is that what happened? And if that is what happened, then how does that accord with the gentleness?
Okay. So thank you. Can you mute? Okay. So thank you, Melissa, for sharing this. To be honest, I haven't heard about the story with the 5 lions. Yeah, I'm not sure, like, because that could be a different version of the sutras that you read. But based on what I read from the sutras, is basically the Buddha just stood there. Okay, there's no manifestation of lions. Okay, I'm just trying to imagine like the encounterment between the lion and the elephant. What would the elephant react? Maybe the elephant will run away. I'm not sure. But here is basically with the stories. I hope that everyone can understand that sometimes because of what the Buddha practiced, is all over him. He didn't have to say it sometimes. He just show it. He just set an example by doing it. Okay. So even compassion, patience, loving kindness is not putting into words, but this is what he is. Yeah. Okay. So, okay. So because of the time, let me share the last slides again. Okay. So, okay. Next week, we will talk about the four necessities and maxims of life. So for those of you with version 1, which is published in 2005, it will be page 54 to 57. For us, anyone with the latest edition, version 2, be page 46 to 49. And also the following Friday, everyone is welcome to join us on the one Friday every month to have the Thank Buddha's Friday is an English lecture. And this month we have invited a doctor from Boston to talk about the power of plant-based diet. Because we know that April is the month of like Earth Day. We celebrate Earth Day. So as one way for us to preserve and protect the environment is the choices of our diet in our everyday life. So we have the opportunity to invite him to come and share with us like the plant-based diet. Okay, you can opt to do online or in person here in San Diego. Okay, so I'll post more information on the Google Classroom, and also those without access to Google Classroom, I will email you with more information. Okay, so now let us join our poems. May kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity pervade all worlds. May we cherish and build affinities to benefit all beings. May chant, pure land, and precepts inspire equality and patience. May our humility and gratitude give rise to great vows. Okay. So I hope everyone have a great week. Be safe, and I'll see you again next Saturday. Okay. Take care.
Thank you, Venerable.